Hello guys and welcome. In this video we're going to be talking about all the different roles in the cafe and go into an explanation behind what each role does in the shop. There isn't one position that's more valuable than another position because everyone is required in the business to work together as a whole to make sure that the business runs effectively. Number one, the floor staff. So the floor staff is responsible for greeting customers as they come into the shop, just to ask about how their day is, take the order, make sure that they take the order as correctly as possible, then give that order to the barista. The floor staff may also be responsible for delivering coffees, delivering food, preparing food, clearing tables, wiping down tables with some sanitizer after the customer's left, and doing some dishes as well. Additionally, the floor staff may be trained to perform some level of barista skills. So they might be able to make some tea, they might be able to do some cold drinks, quite possibly they might answer the phone as well. Next is the barista. This flows on quite nicely because the barista ideally should be able to do everything that the floor staff does, because to operate a cafe successfully, you need to be able to make coffee from the moment that the shop opens. So the barista might be the only person in the shop at that time, so they need to perform the roles of the floor staff until a floor staff member gets there. So number one, ideally, they can perform all the roles of the floor staff. Number two, they're going to be responsible for the coffee machine. They're going to start it up in the morning, they're going to calibrate it, get the grind correct, get the shots flowing, get the milk ready, prepare their workspace for the first rush of customers. Additionally, the barista is responsible for keeping their coffee machine and any equipment that they use, such as an Uber milk, any grinders, making sure that they stay clean after they're finished using them to prolong the life of the equipment and to provide quality beverages. Now here's where we get to some roles you might not have heard of. So the first role that I want to talk about is the first barista assist. A barista assist can ideally be able to do all the coffee, but primarily they focus on one part of making the hot drinks that are coming through. So for instance, if I had a barista assist working with me, they would be responsible for doing the shots and getting the milk. So by getting the milk, I mean just filling up the jugs with milk, then giving the milk to me and I'll steam it up and I'll pour into all the cups, like the takeaway cups, the in-house cups. I'll do all of that and call out the drinks at the end as well. And that barista assist just does everything else that I don't do. So we work together as a whole and that makes us far more efficient. A barista assist is necessary if you only have one coffee machine, but you have two baristas. So effectively you need to be able to work side by side with someone in a small space efficiently to make sure that you can get an increased output of coffees. Honestly, that was just my personal breakdown of what I would do, but realistically you have to take in the experience level and the competency of each barista involved and then try to roughly split the tasks down 50% so that both baristas are working just as hard. So one person isn't doing all the work and the other person is just occasionally doing work. So it's really up to you to kind of divide what exactly makes the coffee, what you can define each part of the coffee process to be, and who is more suitable for each part to make it more synergistic as a whole. Very roughly speaking, you can divide this into the grinding aspect, the extraction part, steaming the milk, and pouring. So 4 basic categories to break it down, just for a bit of an idea for you. So in the past, when we've had 3 baristas and 1 coffee machine, we've had to divide the roles into 3. So an example of how we did this was we had the primary barista assist. They would be responsible for grinding, tamping, and extracting the coffee into the cups. They would get the right cups if they were takeaway coffees and they're doing a few different ones. They would write any necessary details on the side of the cup. Then we would have the second barista assist, and their responsibility would basically just be to get jugs, fill them up with the milk that they need for the coffees that the barista assist is preparing, steam it up and pass that on to the final barista, whose main job was just to get that milk, get the shot that the first barista assist had given you, and then just pour. And literally that is, for us, that was perfect for everyone, because when you pour it, it can take a little bit of time to do some latte art. And number 2, when you call out coffees, if you're very busy, if you have 3 baristas and 1 coffee machine, and you basically have everyone working really fast, that means that you've got a lot of customers coming in. And when there's a lot of customers, you probably understand this as well, but in the takeaway section, a lot of people standing there, people are hesitant to take a coffee, and some people are far too eager to take the wrong coffee. So that barista also has to discern which coffee goes to which customer and make sure it goes to the right one. If there are any tasks that weren't performed by any of these baristas in particular, such as opening up some more milk, wiping down the benches, the person that was free at the time would do it. And if there was a moment where the rush had ended and all the customers were gone, you would just reset. You would wipe the benches, you'd fill up the hoppers with some more coffee beans, you'd look at things that you were running out of, fill up the chocolate powder, fill up the sugars, anything else you needed to do. An example of another staff member that you might find in a cafe setting, although potentially you might not find them at all, is kitchen staff. So if you have a breakfast cafe or work in a breakfast cafe, you might have a kitchen staff member, such as a chef or a cook, that's in charge of perhaps cooking up all the breakfasts for customers. And if they're the only kitchen staff member, they may well also be in charge of washing up the dishes, making the kitchen look clean, and they may also share some of the cleaning up with the floor staff. So it depends on who's busier, who's quieter at what points of the day. You may well have two kitchen staff. In that case, one person will most likely be in charge of preparing the main meals, and the second person will be responsible for doing some of the other parts of a complicated breakfast or a complicated item. They might be just out the back peeling onions and potatoes. This secondary kitchen staff member may well be doing a lot of dishes, or they might be sharing that responsibility with the floor staff as well. They may also come out to the cafe and clear tables. My experience of being a manager has been to be the link between the business and the suppliers to make sure that we have enough supplies to keep the shop running on a day-to-day basis. Some managers may also be directly involved with the roster. Effectively, your job as a manager is to be the glue that holds the business together. When there are any queries or questions, often it's the manager that has the experience, that's been working there for longer, that can calmly and collectively answer any complaints, answer any problems, give any refunds. If the internet stops working, they're the ones that know to turn off the router and turn it back on again. Anything unexpected, they're the link between the running of the business and anything else that pops up that a regular staff member wouldn't know what to do about. In addition, they may also be required to work extra hours. If the business is unexpectedly busier than usual, or if some of the other staff have called in sick or they're unavailable for the day, then the manager has to take on that responsibility to make sure that the service of the business to the customers isn't impacted. And the way that they're going to do that is by putting extra hours in. Most managers tend to be people that have been in the business for longer than the other employees, so they may actively be involved in the hiring of new staff. So when resumes come in, they're going to look through the resume, they're going to get that first impression of that person that's walked in and think, okay, well, we might hire that person, I think they have promise. And if they do get hired, often the manager is the person that takes the most active role in teaching. When the owner is a bit further removed from the business, so they don't have an active day-to-day role, the manager typically tries to align the owner's goals with the running of the shop. So they're going to be there to make sure that the current staff don't deviate from the path that the owner wants. Then we come to another obvious role, which is the boss. The boss owns the business. They've invested their money, time, and effort into the running of the business. Ideally, the boss is going to have a vision for the business, where the business is going to be heading. They're going to have a plan, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan for what they want the business to be like within that time. Hopefully the boss also understands the inner workings of the business, the day-to-day operation. You may not even have a manager if you have an active boss, a boss that comes to work every day and they fulfill all of those roles. Alternatively, the boss may have trained the manager up to such a level that they're only one step beneath the boss. That means that the boss can take a more of a hands-off approach. If this is the case, then the only responsibilities left to the boss are the payroll, perhaps the roster, looking at future-proofing, advertising, social marketing. There are a few things that the boss can do behind the scenes, but it doesn't have to be that much. Some bosses are also heavily invested in market research. They will actively investigate their competitors and closely monitor their own sales for the business on a day-to-day, week-by-week, month-by-month basis. So I hope I've given you a bit of a better understanding about how a typical cafe business may run, some of the different roles involved within the business, perhaps even some roles you weren't aware of at the time. I hope you've liked this video. It hasn't been as active as some of my previous videos, but the content that I try and aim towards giving is going to be diverse. It's going to be across the whole cafe spectrum. If you enjoyed, please like, comment and subscribe so that you can see some of my future videos.